Hello, my friends. Thank you for coming and visiting me today. Today I'm going to kind of go over the tools that I think you should use, and I consider these to be the minimum amount of tools you need. You don't need the bandsaw or the router. You probably do need a drill or brace and bit, something to drill holes with. Um, but other than that, I think this should get you through most things. Um, so let me start with this. Here is my sharpening. I use diamond stones because I've used sandpaper in the past and um, they just fall apart really fast, and I don't know. I never had much luck with sandpaper. It would tear, paper would tear, the grits wear off too soon, and that. Water stones, I think, water or oil, I think, are just messy. Um, and I'm going to go over a sharpening video um, later, but this is um, this is what I use for sharpening. Um, I have coarse. I'm not sure what these actually are all, but it's coarse to super fine or really fine, smooth, and then just a leather strap. Um, I'll go over sharpening more in a later video. The main thing is sharpen often. That's all I got to say about that for now. And then I just have a cloth that keeps the dust off it. I normally keep this whole block over on the shelf, so I just move it back and forth. I do want to make a table to set it on, but that's a whole bunch of things I want to do. And then I have my 3 planes. I started out with just a number 4, the set of chisels, and the saw, and that's what I use to make the workbench. And from there, I've kind of built up. Back then, I was using sandpaper. Don't get sandpaper. Anyways, for sharpening. But I highly recommend spending the money and getting 3 planes, and I'll explain why. This number 4 is great for smoothing and small things. Taking off a lot of material, like when I dimensioned and flattened this bench top, was a lot of work. A lot of work. So this is a smoothing plane, so it's great for small things, and it's probably my favorite plane to use because it's light and easy, and it just gets that last finish look. And so it is probably the last thing I use on it, but I recommend getting the other 2. This one is a number 5. I have it set up with a cambered iron because it's my scrub plane. It's what I use for taking the vast majority of the waste away for rough work. All right, and it removes a lot of material very quickly, and it's kind of a medium size length that way I can reach across boards quite nicely. That's mainly what the length is for, is so that I can go across the width. That's what I wanted. With the smaller the plane, the more that'll follow those lines, and the more skill it takes to get a smooth and flat surface. And then finally, I have a number 6. This is set up basically the same as my smoothing plane for the iron shape. But what it's meant for is, what I use it for mostly is for jointing and smoothing out long surfaces. So if I have a edge of a board that I'm trying to flatten to smooth out, I use this for like glue ups and things like that. Or if I have a particularly wide board that I'm trying to flatten, I'll use this too. just because it's got more length for more registration. So that's that. So that's my plans. I don't have any other ones, and a block plane maybe use nice, but I basically use this like a block plane. And I have a couple other small things down at the other end that I'll get to later that are specialty ones. But these do most of my work with dimensioning boards. And you really don't need anything else. You can do quite a bit of work with just these three, but I do recommend getting at least these three. The other sizes, I don't know, you can do it, you make your own decisions, but that's what I have. And I don't really plan on getting any others. The next I have a set of chisels. They go from their quarter, half, 3/8, inch, and inch and a half, or inch and a quarter, sorry. And these are all I use. I don't use any mortising chisels or anything like that. They're not high-end chisels, but they're not Harbor Freight chisels either. There's nothing wrong with the Harbor Freight chisels as far as I can understand. Wood by Wright is doing a video series right now about testing chisels, so I'm really interested in finding out what his findings are on that. But these have serviced me pretty well. I don't plan on getting new ones. The Harbor Freight ones, I did buy a set of those when I first started, and they needed a lot of work to get ready. I still use them for like, I don't know, odd things like making a poor man's router and things like that. I use them, but these are my regular bench chisels. They're just Stanley Bailey chisels I got for a Christmas present. They work just fine. And then I did make a wooden hammer, but I like this more. It's got more weight to it. The surface area is smaller. It's got both the soft side and the hard side. I've had two of these. One was a Harbor Freight one, which I don't recommend because it fell apart really fast. But I've had this one for about a year and a half, and it's works just fine. So anyways, I use it for assembly plus my chisel work. And then for marking, I have these things right here. This is the only Harbor Freight thing I recommend buying, and I recommend buying multiple. I have only got one right now, but I plan on getting quite a few of them. And yeah, so, but anyways, for right now, these are like a couple dollars, and they are really pretty good. They do need this one did need a little bit of work because the base of that has a little hump in it, so it would get stuck if you did anything very long, like if you had to mark out longer areas. But anyways, this works really nice, and you can't make it for as cheap as that is. But other than that, I try to stay away from Harbor Freight. This is just a cast iron square. I inherited it, so I have no idea who the maker is or anything. May actually say on there. Oh, it is a Stanley. But anyways, it's quite old. But it's still square, so that's all that matters. And I use this. This is my only square, so I use this for everything. And then I do have a marking knife that my wife got me for a present. Before that, I was just using a utility knife, which worked fine. But this is nice. It's got the flat back on one side and for registration. And I am not left-handed at all, so it's nice that I can just use the same hand and mark on both sides without changing much. But anyways, it's just a knife, so it's nothing fancy, I guess. And then a bevel gauge. I use this. This is, I think, another essential piece of equipment. You need something for doing angles. because not everything you're going to do is square or 45 degrees. So dovetail layout, all that stuff. One of these is great. And then saws. I think these are probably going to be the core saws that you need, or that you should get. I did just purchase this one. It's a carcass saw, which I'll get to in a second. I've just now gotten that, so I've never even used it yet. But the first, I'll go over that next time when I go into the projects. But I think these are the saws that you should get. And they're a mixture. Most of them have been given to me. I did buy this, which I don't recommend spending as much money as I did, but I don't know. I got bought into expensive things. It works fine. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's a saw. I spent way too much money on it. But what I have here is a rip saw. This is just a saw filed rip, and what that means is the teeth are filed straight across as opposed to at an angle. And then I also have a cross cut. Eventually, I'll probably change and get a regular, longer bladed saw that I can, even if I just a rip saw that I can reshape my teeth in. I think I will, but right now this works fine. It's kind of short. I think this one is a much better width. I think the blade is I don't know, 2 foot long maybe, and that's a much better for the length of the arms. These are for the large cuts, the cuts for dimensioning boards to begin with. And then we get to our joinery saws. This is a tenon saw. Again, it's filed rip because you're going down the length of the with the grain. This one and the carcass saw, I think, are probably going to be the best ones to get because they're basically do the same thing. They're for larger cuts, but like larger pieces, they can cut deeper. But this one's a filed rip, and this one's a cross cut. And it just gives you cleaner cuts when you're going across the grain as opposed to with the grain. This is my dovetail saw, and I don't think it's necessary. So if you have one saw that you don't need to get, it's a dovetail saw. You can get away with doing dovetails with your tenon saw just fine. Again, it's just filed a rip teeth, but it's just smaller and lighter, so it lets you it's easier to control with your arm. That's basically the difference. And then these are the things you could probably get away with. These are the specialty things that are very helpful. And I use them all the time. I'll start from the beginning. These are the finish products. Card scraper takes the place of any kind of like higher grit stuff, so it removes the need to do any kind of higher grit sanding. This is actually for roughing up the surface, not for smoothing it out. This is just 220 sandpaper. It's pretty much the only sandpaper I use. So a card scraper with a burnisher, which this is one of those areas I need to work on turning a burr better. But again, I'm just new at this myself. But when I do get a burr turned on this correctly, it makes very quick work of finishing. And this is my router plane. I love this thing. It doesn't, now I don't know if you have to necessarily use a Lee Nielsen, that's not, the brand doesn't matter. What's nice about it is it makes the bottoms of cross grain a dado basically. Makes it so much nicer to use. And also for finishing off the end of tenons and things like that. I love this a router plane. It's super fun to use. Next to my number 4, this is probably my next favorite thing to use. This is a brain freeze right now. A spoke shave. It's a flat bottom one. I will probably get a rounded bottom one. That's on my tool list. But this is what I have for right now. It works. It looks good. I use it mostly for chamfering edges. But then again, most of the time I just use my number 4 for that too. So I don't use it a whole lot. But some things. One thing I did use it for was I had a door that wasn't closing right. So I took it and planed off a few shavings off the edge, and it shut perfectly, and it was super lightweight. It was easy to carry. And then this is very fun when it works. My setup and use of it needs some work, but it's a grooving plane. It makes very nice flat grooves in a board for your framing panel things, and I want to get better at using this. I think this is an essential tool. I think it does something that you can't do with anything else very easily. So I really highly recommend getting one of these, even though I'm not the greatest at using it yet. It's kind of finicky. I do recommend getting a grooving plane. So thank you for sticking with me through all that long description of tools. I don't know. I don't have all the answers for this, but this is what I use. And you'll see throughout the time, but I think these are all your main tools that you need. If this is something, if you've been interested in this or in what I'm doing, please subscribe, and I hope to see you guys next time. Thank you. Bye.